Courtney, thank you. So post-election, it has been a busy week on Capitol Hill and at City Council.
And here to discuss is host of the WGN Political Report, Paul Lisdick. Thanks for coming
Every
in.
week is busy.
I'm telling you. Let's start with City Council.
Sure.
We know that they unanimously struck down Mayor Brandon Johnson's proposal to raise the property tax.
Yeah.
So now what are they going to do as far as closing that $1 billion budget gap?
Well, you know, what's interesting about that vote, Micah, is I can't remember the last time the City Council took a 50-0 vote against the mayor, right? And of course, the mayor initially had said, you know, I was just floating this out there. I was trying to start a conversation. I think basically he's trying to save face. This is a very tough one for him. And I think what it represents is perhaps a city council that is showing more independence and strength. It's the way the city was designed, but it's not the way it's been. Go back a few dailies, and we know the mayor is always control it. So what is next? Well, if there's no property tax increase, they've got to get the money from somewhere. So they are now having discussions about what do we raise? Maybe it's the cigarette tax. Maybe it's the garbage collection tax. Maybe it's the amusement tax. Maybe it's the bag tax in the store. They're talking about that. All these things are on the table.
I thought they still had that back tax.
They do.
The 10 cents.
But you're only paying, no, it's only 7 cents. So we may just up it now to.
I thought it was 10 cents, but okay.
Well,
maybe in
who
your
knows? I don't even know. Yeah, I think where I live, they can kind of
well,
bring
you
it
know,
down.
you saw Larry Snelling, police superintendent, saying, hey, we need money. Don't forget us.
Exactly. Today they're having discussions about CPD and the money for there. So look, they're in a very tough situation. There's no question about that. But you know, it's hard to say they shouldn't have seen this coming. I mean, as much as Mayor Johnson in his budget address started talking about mismanagement of the past administrations, you know, look, he was handed a surplus budget, and he knew the COVID money was going away. So yes, they were flush with money during that period of time. But it's not as though somebody pulled the rug out. He knew this is what was going to be coming, and there should have been better planning for it. You've heard some aldermen say, why are we just talking about this now? These conversations should have been a year ago.
That meeting lasted just a few minutes. It was unanimous. It is another bad sign about the relationship between the council and the mayor.
I think so. And by the way, before they left that meeting, they went, and while we're here, ShotSpotter. And so they had another decision to get ShotSpotter back on the discussion board to get it into the budget. We know the mayor's not for that. So you can see there's going to be some strain going back and forth between the mayor's priorities, city council's priorities. I don't know where it's going to end, but I know that December 31st is the deadline. So they're going to have to figure this out in the coming weeks.
President-elect Donald Trump not wasting any time with filling his cabinet, but with some controversial people. RFK for health. You've got Tulsi Gabbard maybe to head the FBI, not head the FBI, but for
Department of
Homeland Security, saying some people say that she likes Russia. She likes Bashar al-Assad, things like that. You've got so many people in there that are getting a lot of controversy.
So he's had some picks which aren't. So it's easier to dispose of them. Right. You've got Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, where even a lot of his colleagues have said, that's a pretty good pick. You know, he's working foreign affairs.
But what about Matt Gaetz and Attorney General? That's one of the biggest.
Well, what I'm saying is, so you have some of these picks which may sail through, then you have the other side that you're talking about, which are going to have some problems. Micah, I think this is a bigger thing than will Matt Gaetz become Attorney General. What I mean by that is, I think this is the president-elect challenging the Senate, because it's the Senate that has to vote on these, not the House. And so the Senate, now under the control of John Thune, who's the new head of the Senate in the new term, and basically this is soon to be President Trump again saying, this is who I want, make it happen. And we'll see whether they do. John Thune's been asked about that. You going to vote for it? And we'll see what happens. These people have to be vetted. You know, all today, this discussion of that report of the investigation of the House on Matt Gaetz with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who says, if you want to know what I think about life, read the Bible. That's my view of life. And yet, when it comes to this kind of ethical report, says, don't release it. I don't.
Well, why does the FBI have to look into these things? Why can't they look at that? Why is he able to just sail through?
Well, who, Matt Gaetz?
Yeah, the FBI. They said that they don't look at these things.
Oh, well, no, what happened was, there was a discussion the DOJ had on Matt Gaetz, and they just decided not to charge him. And the reason DOJ doesn't charge when they don't charge, they don't feel they can win the case. But this is a very different standard in the House. This is not the beyond a reasonable doubt or anything like that. This is the House at a very different standard. They're looking at it differently. But here's the point. If Matt Gaetz, who resigned immediately upon the nomination, there is more of a tradition. There's some exceptions, but there is a tradition of, if there's an investigation, they close because you're leaving the House. But in this case, he's leaving the House, but he's not going into private practice. He wants the top law enforcement job in the country. And that means the Senate has a responsibility to look at that and look at what his background is. So you're going to see, you're seeing a lot of demand by Dick Durbin and others. We want to see that report. there's already information leaking out about it. So my best guess is within days to come, we'll know what's in that report, whether it's released or leaked.
People have been coming forward, right, saying, you know, not compelled, but there's been talk about these recess appointments, doing it that way. Explain how that process
So
works.
it's been a process that has worked over time, although I should say it's important that this process that I'll talk about, when President Obama tried it, the Supreme Court stepped in and said no. So I'm not sure where that gets him. But essentially what happens is, and this goes back to the beginning of our country, you know, they couldn't all be, you didn't fly to Washington, right? So there were times you couldn't get everybody in Washington. So they created the notion of a recess appointment, which is when you can't have a meeting, a quorum and all that, then the president has the power to make appointments during that recess. And then they would take position for, it could be a short amount of time, could be for as long as a year. So, and you may remember that when Obama was president, what they would do is when Obama tried to make an appointment during a recess, they would send somebody to the Senate and they would just go in there and read Dr. Seuss or something for a few minutes and then leave, because you don't have a recess if there's somebody on the floor speaking every day. That was kind of the game tried.
It seems like a workaround. I mean,
well,
really.
part of it's a game, but it is provided for. So the bottom line here is going to be what Trump has been saying is he's been telling John Thune and whatever, I want you to take a recess, so don't come back, stay on vacation for a while. That will give me the power to do it. There's actually a constitutional provision that permits a president to put the Senate and the House into recess. That's never been exercised in our history. If anybody's going to exercise it, it's probably Donald Trump. We'll see what happens.
Why can't we put amendments in? 1776 was when the Constitution was signed. Why are we still going by all that?
Well, there have been amendments. You know, the Equal Rights Amendment has been hanging around for a while, waiting for some president to sign it. It hasn't happened, but yes.
Like I said, we haven't added things like we should have.
Exactly. And so, but some of these things, Micah, you know, it's until they're tested. Like I just said, here's a provision about a president sending the Senate into recess. Yeah, it's been around since 1776.
Yeah, they couldn't get to Washington, D.C., so
but
now anybody can get there. We can Zoom.
But nobody's ever, they didn't have Zoom with Washington, so nobody's ever dealt with this before. And the bottom line is, when you don't have a challenge, why bring it up? And remember, a constitutional amendment isn't just the Senate and the House passing it. That's all 50 states got to. It's a big deal to make that happen.
There was a positive moment here. Let's talk about that started off the week. President Biden brought President-elect Donald Trump into the White House.
Tradition.
A courtesy that Trump did not extend to Biden. And so, I mean, but then all of these appointments came, and it kind of put that on its ear.
Yeah, so that it's a tradition. It's part of the transition of power. You're right. Trump did not extend that to Biden because he never admitted that he lost, so he didn't extend it. You know, of interesting note has been that Melania Trump did not show up to this meeting. Now, you know, there's some, and people text me messages and all this kind of thing. They're saying, well, she didn't show up because the FBI, you know, went to Mar-a-Lago and they explored it. To me, this is a traditional meeting. Jill Biden extended the invitation. It doesn't mean, I'm sure that Biden and Trump weren't having a great time either, but it's something you do for the image to the country. So should Melania Trump have been there and have tea with Jill Biden? You can argue that she should have been. On the other hand, Melania Trump's view is, I've had tea at the White House. I've lived there. I know where everything is. Thank you, but no thank you. And the word was, I have a previous conflict. So maybe that was it. But I'm more all about tradition and image, and I think it would have been better had they both been there and taken the picture of the two couples. That's part of our peaceful transition.
And before we get to your show, we also should say that Caroline Leavitt is going to be the White House press secretary, and he's trying to get Kash Patel to be in there as the FBI director.
Well, Caroline Leavitt,
Christopher Wray.
She was the press secretary for him in the 2020 campaign, and so she's been around, and it makes sense. This was predicted probably that she would go there. As far as Kash Patel, this guy does not belong running the FBI. Not only does he have very little experience, 3 years working on the line at DOJ.
He was a lawyer.
And he is a lawyer, but if you watch
so
everything
are you.
he says...
You want to be the FBI director?
Okay.
All right. What's coming up on your weekend show?
All right. We're going to have Alderman Timmy Knudsen of the 43rd Ward. He's going to talk about all of this city council stuff we've been looking at. He'll do it from the alderman's perspective. Richard Gordon is a political strategist. He's going to talk about these Trump cabinet picks and what that all means. And then next Friday, when I do the midday news with one of my visits there, at 12:15, I'll be talking to Megan Gorman. She'll be in studio talking about her new book, All the President's Money. It's really interesting to see the money, like which ones were born rich, which ones not, and who did well. Can I give you just one thing? Which president do you think was the most successful with money?
For the country's money, you mean? Or
No,
their personal money?
Their personal money. Which was most successful for money? I know we don't have a lot of time, but...
Obama.
Not Trump.
Herbert Hoover.
Herbert Hoover.
Thank you.
He brought the country to its
my
knees.
time.
It was before my time, too.
I don't know.